out Trocheck, for me, it's a full-blown rebuild, I think. Like, I just think he's that big of a piece
Mhm.
in the middle that you take it out and you also incorporate the loss of Artemi. It's just two huge major minuses to the lineup that it just,
Right.
depending on what's come, even if you do, pick third overall, second overall, whatever it is. How's it going, hockey heads? Welcome to the season finale episode of Up in the Blue Seats, your favorite Rangers podcast from the New York Post. It's Mollie Walker and former Ranger Brian Boyle, as always. And we're here to put a bow on the 2025-2026 season, which was quite the disappointment for the Rangers as a whole. They finished the season on the road in Dallas, Sunrise, and Tampa, and went 1-2, losing to the Stars and Panthers before beating the Lightning 4-2 to cap the season. Jonathan Quick played his final NHL game ever against the Panthers. Brian, what was your reaction when you heard the official news?
Just what a legend. What a legend. You know, speaking of putting a bow on, it's going to have to be a pretty big, pretty gorgeous bow to wrap up that disappointing season for our boys. But yeah, with Johnny, uh, what a career. And it's cool just to see it for as a fan, because we were in camp together. We came into pro hockey together. We played against each other in college, obviously, but getting to know him a little bit throughout the years, you know, he didn't change who he was as a teammate, as a competitor. That's really impressive. We all grow up a little bit and mature a little bit, some more than others, but yeah, he's just listened to everybody that's spoken about him, that's been able to play with him, what he's done, how he's rubbed off on
Mhm.
not just other goalies, right? Like teammates and
Everybody.
players. And that's unique in that position, I think. And Hank had it just because of how hard he worked and how good he was, how important he was. Other guys had it, but not every goalie has it, which is fine. Like it's a unique position, but he you know what, the humility comes to mind when you talk about Jonathan Quick.
Mm.
It's certainly an outward looking approach that he has. It's not just him, even though he plays a position that's very individualized and a lot of attention gets to that. And just the style of play that he had. He entertained fans. Excuse me. I'm fighting it today, little flu game action, but he entertained
It's also
fans.
freezing.
Yeah, it is freezing in my house. Um, I mean, it was a cool style that he played.
Yeah.
So, congrats to him on a great career.
I think it's pretty underrated how much he extended his already Hall of Fame worthy career. I mean, by three
Yeah.
years, if you really think about it, because his game was obviously on the decline when he left LA, gets traded to Columbus, is a Blue Jacket for a day, gets flipped to Vegas, wins a third Stanley Cup there as a third stringer. Um, and then he signs with the Rangers. And if you remember that first preseason that he played, I mean, there was a legitimate concern he'd be bought out by December if his game didn't turn around because it was,
Yeah, it was tough.
yeah, it was a tough preseason stretch. He did not do well, but once the regular season started, I mean, he was a vintage form of himself for a majority of
Mm.
his time in New York. I mean, he was able to achieve so many extra milestones. He became the winningest American born goalie. He reached 400 wins, all time shutouts leader for American goalies, won the Mr. Ranger Award, and he got to accompany the team to the conference final. Obviously, didn't play, but I mean, I remember writing a whole feature about that run and how he was the title on the article was "Working Without a Net." Is because he made his impact felt in that room, regardless of whether he was on the ice or not. I think it was before Game 2 of the Carolina series that year, going into overtime. I don't know exactly what he said, but he stood up and delivered some, as Vincent Trocheck put it, kick in the ass type of message, and they went out there and won. So Yeah, he made his mark on the Rangers for sure. And how cool was it for us to, see him end his career as a Ranger, a team that he grew up rooting for, being a Connecticut native. So
Yeah.
it was great. He went out on his terms, a fellow UMass alum, might I add. He got to do it his way and went on in his terms. So it was really awesome end to a phenomenal NHL career. And we wish Jonathan Quick all the best in whatever's to come and thank him for giving us an awesome last couple of years of his career to cover.
You guys still the
Um,
Minutemen?
yeah, we are.
Minute women, all of it?
Minutemen, yeah. Minutemen and Minutewomen.
It's a
Hmm.
hard one. Hey, how
Yeah,
hard
it's
is it
not
to
that
come to
great.
your childhood team and play, even when you have three cups? That's what that preseason's
Yeah,
about. It's not easy, folks.
true.
But
No,
he rose above.
100%.
They were patient. Great job. Happy for him. That's the
Yeah,
dream.
he was great. I think maybe one of my favorite Jonathan Quick memories from him being a Ranger was his Halloween costume with Matt Rempe the year that he was housing him. Matt Rempe was Buddy the Elf and he was Papa Elf.
That was a good one.
There's a there's a picture of Rempe sitting on Quick's lap looking exactly like Will Ferrell does on his Papa Elf. Oh, it
Oh
was
boy.
so funny. Yeah, that was a good one. Um, all
Classic.
right, breakup day. Breakup day. That was a good
Go.
one. I mean, some breakup day highlights. I mean, first I want to say that the optimism in the room was palpable. It was very much a pleasant day in that regard, very different than the room was just last year, and so that's a little bit of progress for sure. But we spoke to head coach Mike Sullivan first, and I'll just read the quote that caught most people's attention. He was asked what he felt were the biggest needs for the Rangers roster going into the offseason. And he said, I think we'll have some opportunities potentially to add some puck moving ability on our blue line. I think there might be some opportunities to improve our bottom six at the forward position where players might be able to play certain roles that could allow us to take some of our core players out of situations. And he went on to use JT Miller, Mika Zibanejad, and Vincent Trocheck as an example on the penalty kill. So it sounds like Sullivan is looking for more role players who can alleviate some of the top guys' workloads. Brian, what was your immediate thoughts on hearing those two aspects of the lineup needing the most attention?
I agree wholeheartedly on D. I think there was, and look, I like what some individual players did on D this year. I mean, there's a something to be said about Matthew Robertson and his perseverance. Where is he ultimately long term? Probably bottom pair. I feel like a
Mm-hmm.
lot of these guys are best suited, 16 to 18, 19 minutes in the bottom pair.
Yeah.
I like their first pair with
Oh
Gavrikov
yeah.
and Fox. And then I think the rest of them are a little bit redundant and
Mm-hmm.
maybe are in spots that are, doesn't really set up as well for them. I'm not saying maybe they could continue to improve and grow and maybe become a middle pair. But I think just if you have and no, that's an important, I'm not trying to take anything away from that. That's an important, I mean, coming from a bottom sixer, that's an
Of
important part. You need that to be
course.
solid, like rock solid. And it's not that easy. There was a lot of changing and movement and guys coming in. Some of that had to do with injury. I just think you need, I mean, take like I'm looking at the LA Kings right now, for example, who are in the playoffs with 23 regulation wins. So just whatever. They're not really a playoff team, but they're giving Colorado right now everything they can handle. They can't score. And I don't think it's because of the forwards, because Artemi's been there now and he looks pretty good.
He has
Kopitar,
their
if you
only two goals, right?
right. And Kempy's a really good player and Byfield can be good. And they have Laferriere and they have some players that would be unlocked if they had more mobility and puck moving ability, offensive ability from their back end. They just don't have enough. And it's just like you saw it with the Rangers this year early in the year, and they look, even when the Rangers played well, that's the LA Kings. That's the
Yeah.
Spider-Man meme. They're kind of pointing at each other right now. It's just there's not enough offense coming from all five guys on the ice. It's too hard
Mm-hmm.
to ask one
Mm-hmm.
guy or two guys to run the engine offensively. So that I agree 100%. That's what they were missing. It was pretty glaring at times this year, calling games. And what do? It's like asking me to play second line center and run a power play. I would have done my absolute best, but it wouldn't have been good. It wouldn't have, and again, part of that was, and this might go into what we're talking about with some of the forwards. Part of that was like in the American League, I did do that. I had my first year pro, I scored 17 power play goals. I had no issues scoring and creating in
Hmm.
college, but like it's a different animal.
Yeah.
And so maybe some of these forwards who have had success at lower levels embrace, I'm going to shut down whoever you want me to shut down. And I think they have bottom six forwards now that skate well enough. Like
Hmm.
I'm looking at Noah Laba right now. Like there is
Yeah.
your glue
Hmm.
guy. You
Yep.
can put him in every role, turn him into like a Scott Laughton in his prime or whatever with more speed. You can chip in offensively. You look at a Will Cooley, be just so hard to play against because you're still young and you can continue to develop other parts of your game, but commit to that. Have an identity line that like so many of these teams seem to have, and you can kind of go from there. I'm looking at Carolina right now, and they were kind of they don't have that superstar, but they have now. They found post-Olympic break the line with Stankoven, Taylor Hall, and Jackson Blake. And Jackson Blake put up a ton of points in junior. Taylor Hall obviously is one of Hart Trophy. They've embraced that third line
Yeah.
mismatch role and like they're causing fits for other teams. If
You
you
sound
can
like
do
Larry.
that,
This
uh,
is what Larry's been preaching for years.
identity,
Yeah,
have roles.
that kind of line though that you're talking about, a third line, checking line, matchup line that can play that sort of game. That's
Right,
Larry's
right.
been
Mike Rupp
banging
says
that
it.
drum for years.
Well, absolutely. And Mike Rupp every year he's like, show me your third line. And
Yeah.
now it's kind of evolved because this the way the league is. It's like show me your bottom six, really, because you
Hmm.
can't play guys 6 minutes anymore for
Hmm.
long stretches of time. You just can't. So yeah, I agree. I mean, I know that it seems like there's a lot of quote unquote bottom six guys right now in the system. Some of them are speedy, fast. Are they super smart? Are they committed to just being pests and shut down? Are they trying to get goals, trying to get cookies? You know, Brendan Othman was a good example. It's like you need to
Yeah.
stick to that role. It's not always about scoring. And he put a lot of pressure on himself scoring, first round pick. I get
Hmm.
it.
Hmm.
Takes time. Took me time, took
That's
me
all.
three
Oh
teams.
yeah, it was also his identity in the OHL too. He was
It's my
kind of a
identity
sharpshooter.
everywhere.
Yeah.
It's not that it's not an easy thing. Like no. It's like that's the balancing act. Like no, I'm confident I can do these things. Well, we're not going to ask you to do them. So can you do what we're asking you to do? Continue to work at your game. It's a hard thing for a player. We all have egos, but well, it remains to be seen. Do you want to be a Ranger or not?
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't I don't disagree. I think that I'm curious to see what the bottom six competition is going to look like next season because you're adding Matt Rempe to it again and Adam Edstrom, who obviously was scratched for the last stretch of the season and was dealing with injuries this year as well. Sakura joins the fray, Hamelash joins the fray. Um, so they've got a lot of these guys, but I mean, I was talking about it with Vince on another podcast, Blue Shirts Breakaway, just about how it felt like at times this season, which you mentioned, which was largely because of all the injuries, it felt like they were deploying three lines that could fit in the bottom six,
Hmm.
that could be bottom six type units. So um, I think my biggest concern is how are you going to replace Artemi Panarin's production? I think that's going to be a really difficult void to fill unless certain guys, take a much bigger step than they did this year in terms of filling in for production. I look at a guy like Will Cooley can definitely bring more offense for sure. But yeah, I mean, he's going to be such a hard guy to replace,
Well,
just a play driver like that.
Lafreniere has
Yeah,
to take a huge step.
for sure. Yeah, I mean, like we could probably dedicate a whole episode to Alexi Lafreniere going into next season.
Hmm.
Um, but it almost feels like every season is an important for season for Lafreniere, at least the
Biggest
last
summer of
couple
his life.
ones. Yeah, yeah. No, it definitely is. It definitely is. Just because I really do think it's going to be difficult to replace Artemi's production because he, for so long, just led the team by such a considerable margin as well, just like a true points collector kind of guy. And past him, there aren't that many, in the league in general, but certainly not on the Rangers.
Well,
So,
there's like three wingers that can
um,
do what he does.
yeah,
Like I'm
yeah,
thinking,
correct.
they're different players, but like Kucherov, Rantanen,
Yeah.
and like a Pastrnak.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So
Precisely. You just basically sounded out my ballot for the NHL awards. um, yeah, I mean, we spoke to Chris Jury later in the day, and I tried to ask him the same question without citing exactly what Sullivan said, kind of hoping that he might give something different. But he did lean on on what was already out there and didn't give much else. He didn't really say anything about anything really in his end of season availability. He just said that he thought those two comments by Sullivan were two good specific areas that he agreed um, moseying on into who stays and who goes type of conversation. We heard from two guys at Breakup Day who are and have been in trade rumors for some time. Vincent Trocheck probably spoke the least definitively about his future and the Rangers' future, understandably. We all know Drury tried to trade him at the deadline, but wasn't able to find the package he was looking for. So he held on to him out of hopes the market would change to get him the deal that he wants this offseason. I asked Trocheck point blank if he had an expectation one way or another, and he said he didn't know what was going to happen. And when he was asked if he had a preference, it wasn't exactly an encouraging answer from a Rangers perspective. He said, I have to talk to my family about it, try to see where we're headed as a team, and try to figure something out. I don't know exactly right now. How do you see this playing out with Vincent Trocheck, Brian, if you had to guess?
he didn't want to be in trade rumors. He didn't want to be because
Yeah,
it's hard. It's hard. Like you
I
want to be
know.
part of the solution. And he's a proud
Yeah.
guy. And he's a good player. He's been a good player. And man, what you heard from him in terms of what he was dealing with earlier this
Oh
season.
my God. Yeah. We
Well,
can get to that later.
yeah. If you're a Ranger fan, I think you want to keep him. And
Yeah.
look, I get it. His contract, his deal, the term, the money, it's attractive to a number of different teams. And if you don't want to pull the trigger, if you're another team, I think the Rangers did, they took a side emotion, put it over to the side and said, this is the business we're doing. We're not selling low on Troach. We're going to keep him
Yeah.
because we value him. But as a player, it's like, why are you even entertaining this? So
Right.
it's like I've been thinking about it since the deadline. I have to wrap my head around it so I don't get blindsided. It's sort of a survival, protect yourself mechanism.
Mhm.
Um, I've no doubt if they hold on to him, he's going to give you everything because he's that type of guy. He's that type of teammate. I don't really blame him. I don't really
How could
think
you? No.
like yeah, you want to go where you're absolutely wanted. So
Yep.
yeah, that's probably why he probably doesn't know what to say. And
Exactly.
I don't know if they did exit meetings with everyone or if anything is even
Hmm.
said in those exit meetings. He probably does. We're not going to get that information uh right away anyway. But yeah, it's pro sports. You gotta now that the season's over, it's kind of like you gotta look out for yourself and see sort of what's what. I don't blame him at all. I hope he's back because I like dealing with him. Hope I'm back
Yeah.
too. I don't know what's going on there, but
So
um,
stop.
yeah, no, it's interesting. I mean, there's so many things. There's stuff that like I mean, with even JT, what he was dealing with this year was crazy. I'm like, how are you playing right now?
Yeah.
So yeah, disappointing season, and ultimately you're going to be judged on your results. But those two guys in particular, they're Pittsburgh farm strong. These guys, like holy, tough dudes trying to
Yeah.
just gut it out. Didn't work out in their favor, but you can't question their toughness.
Yeah. I am really curious to see what happens there because obviously he's such a, key part of the lineup as well. You think about if he gets traded, how the lineup shifts, depending on who they bring in. If they don't bring anybody else in, because Noah Laba, I think, would be a great fourth line center on a good team. Like
Hmm.
I think that he would be a great anchor in the middle down there. But if you take Trocheck out of the situation, you're gonna need to fill that. You're gonna need to fill it in the middle and that middle six there. So yeah, it definitely yeah, it's going to change a lot of how the lineup looks if they trade him. So I think about how they're going to replace what he brings as well, being as involved as he is in every single aspect of the Rangers game as
Yeah.
well. So yeah, it just seems like a lot of what we're talking about is subtracting, but granted we don't know what any of the returns are going to look like, but yeah, it's definitely a precarious situation in that regard. But another guy whose Rangers future is uncertain, Braden Schneider. He struck a much different tone when asked about going into this offseason with some uncertainty. He said, I love being a Ranger. I'm very proud to be a Ranger, and it feels like home here. I know I'll be doing whatever I can to be the best player I can be, and I hope it's here. Whatever happens is going to happen. I'm proud to be a Ranger, so that's where I'll leave that. We'll see what happens. So he's a pending RFA with arbitration rights. So it could be a Keandre Miller type situation where the Rangers extend Schneider a qualifying offer to retain his rights and then trade them elsewhere for his new team to hash out that new contract. I mean, I know Schneider was shopped a bit leading up to the deadline, and among the players on this roster who are easily movable, Schneider's probably has the highest value considering the fact that he's young and a really strong third pair option on a contending team. Um, he's also just such a hard worker. And from my understanding, one of the easiest guys to manage, like, just like one of those guys that you just really enjoy having around your team.
Hmm.
What do you think Schneider could be or should be worth? I'm under the impression they're looking for a high end prospects and or an NHL ready player to be part of this deal if they're going to part with Braden Schneider here.
Yeah, it's a bit of a moving target. Um, in terms of, I mean, if you wait longer, does he figure it out and you keep him, or does he figure it out and he's worth more, or is it a lot of more of the same? And now that he's a year older, he could just be that as a player, and then his value might go down.
Yeah,
It's ultimately, do you want to keep him or not? And is it a Vince Trocheck thing where it's like, well, we're open, nobody's untouchable, so what are you willing to offer? And
right.
then you like I like dealing with him, and the few times I've had to deal with him, again, like I echo everything you just said. I think he's certainly has high character, and he's a good person to have in your
Yeah,
organization,
he
and
really
people
is.
people like that who also like being there.
Yeah, it counts for something. It does.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Um, but it's interesting, and I think in a couple weeks here we'll see where the ping pong balls fall.
Of
That
course,
has a
May 5th.
lot. Yeah, this has a lot to do with sort of how you can approach going into certain things. And the UFA list isn't, franchise altering moves. There's forwards out there if you can convince to come that might help. But again, I think their needs on D and him in the bottom pair. I think he can just like set it and forget it. Let him just
Yeah.
play his game quietly, be effective, be strong, be tough. Playoffs come. If you get in, he's a guy that he can play big boy hockey. He's a strong player, plays hard, hits hard. Um, it's an interesting one. I don't like giving up on youngish
Yeah.
D. People seem to think that they've seen enough. Some people do. Some people like him. Even scouts asking me mid-game, like, what's going on with him? Why are they shopping him? Why would you ever get rid of this? Others being like, how come he hasn't figured it out? So everybody
Yeah.
seems sort of split.
Has a different take. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the one thing that I think carried some weight was earlier in this season when Fox was out. He got like a run of 21 games next to Gavrikov in a first pair role. And I was actually looking at like his ice time. I mean, first of all, he jumped from 17 something minutes a game last season to over 20 this
Hmm.
season,
Yeah.
including those stretches in the top four. But in particular, that run next to Gavrikov was it wasn't that great. Not great at all. It was pretty bad actually. So I think that when they think big picture on Schneider, they moved up a few spots to draft him in 2019. I think they were expecting a little bit more of an upside offensively too. And he just hasn't really been able to step into that top four role when the opportunities have arisen. And I think that's part of the reason why they thought they might get more out of him as a
Hmm.
player when he first
Yeah.
came into the organization. So I think that that is also what's factoring into it. But also, if you go up and down this lineup, not a lot of among the guys that are movable, they don't have a lot of value. I think Schneider has a lot of value being young, an
Hmm.
RFA. It just makes him a little bit more enticing to other teams, I think, in
Yeah.
terms of what Drury can get back in a package, which clearly they're trying to recoup assets, both like assets and, NHL ready pieces if they can. So,
Well, where do we like, so that's the other thing, right? Like if you trade
yeah.
a Trocheck or you trade a Schneider, which direction are you
Hmm.
going in the short term? Like, is it a rebuild
Yeah.
or a retool? I get that you're keeping
And
Igor, you're keeping Fox, you're keeping
these are the
Mika.
questions.
It's like, all right, we're gonna
Because that's how
trade.
I see it too. You
Yeah, you're
send out
trading for
Trocheck, it's a
prospects,
rebuild. You
right?
send out Trocheck for me, it's a full blown rebuild, I think. Like, I just think he's that big of a piece
Hmm.
in the middle that you take it out and you also incorporate the loss of Artemi. It's just two huge major minuses to the lineup that it just,
Right.
depending on what's come, even if you do, pick third overall, second overall, whatever it is, it does feel more like a rebuild when you look at the options that they're most likely the routes that they're most likely to
Yeah.
take. So
They're
I
taking
don't
a
disagree
step
with you
back
there.
to hopefully have a
Yeah.
stronger
Yeah.
future. It's weird the timeline considering
Yeah.
we
Yeah. Well,
don't
that's
know.
why we've been trying to get Jury to give some sort of, indication of what his expectations are. You don't have to put a definitive timeline on it, but just do you expect to be competing in the playoffs next year? Do you expect to take a step back next season? Like that sort of things. But say la vie. We're not gonna not gonna get not gonna get everything we want. Um, Injury recap, kind of extensive. You mentioned it earlier. Vincent
Yeah.
Trocheck had a bacterial infection in his lung that cost him
Yeah.
14 games at the start of the season. He spent a whole week in the hospital, hooked up to chest tubes, and had to
Yikes.
undergo surgery. I mean, I think everybody saw my reaction. Did you watch the video of my reaction? That was so genuine. I swear
What?
that was like the one of the
Yeah.
craziest injuries I've ever heard detailed in person like that. What was your reaction when you heard that?
Yeah, I'm more of like I never really talked about it after a season, the injuries that I went through um and I wouldn't unless like that happened. Because that's scary, man. That's
Yeah.
you got
Oh,
kids and
yeah.
I remember when I was going through what I had to go through in Jersey, they were like, you have to have a phone press conference type thing. And I'm like, what? No. Like you signed a 2-year deal and haven't gone to camp yet. Like do something. And I'm like, I
Aw.
don't want to. So it's kind of like, but
Yeah.
when you're just missing and then you're in the hospital and it's like I play a game for a living. I take it very seriously. It consumes me
Yeah.
until you're in the hospital with, your wife and your kids are at home scared. And
Yeah.
so then it's kind of like, look,
Yeah.
this is what I was dealing with this year. Like the roller coaster Troach was on this year
Mm.
from from that to the team
Yeah.
to the
Yep.
Olympics
Yep.
to like the
To
trade
them being on the
deadline.
trade block. Yeah.
Yeah. Like
Having
this
his
guy's
bags basically packed. Like,
uh,
yeah, it was a
held out
lot.
for roster management. Oh no, come on back.
Yeah.
His head's probably spinning. So what a pro.
Yeah.
Happy he doesn't have a bacterial infection inside his body anymore.
Oh my
And the
God.
doctors took care took care of that. Man, yeah, I can't
That was
even.
wild.
Yeah, so good for him. He's tough. He's a tough guy.
Yeah. definitely a bit of a roller coaster for him this season, for sure.
Hmm.
Adam Edstrom played on a fractured ankle for 6 weeks, he said, which also required surgery to fix.
Yeah.
But that was obviously more earlier in the season, toward the end. He's an interesting case, and I'll probably write about him at some point too, because they tried to make him they tried to switch him to center, which he was drafted as a center, I'm pretty sure,
Yeah.
and played center earlier on in his career. But we were asking him about him at breakup day, and he said he feels more comfortable on the wing. So that's also a situation that, doesn't really help his case in terms of nailing down a role uh, in the lineup. So yeah,
Oh man,
he'll
you're
be
asked to
a
play center. You play center. Center's the best.
yeah. I mean, he
Wing
did.
stinks.
I think he got like 3 or 4 games, something
I
like
know,
that.
but like, man, if he
Yeah, it was
embraces that, he could
yeah,
be
it was
the
very
sky's the
short-lived.
limit. When
Yeah,
you're
it was
six
very
eight
short-lived.
and you break your ankle, it's really, I mean, the NHL is pretty hard anyway.
Yeah,
So when you're, yeah, that's not, it's hard to sort of judge what he could do. I'm so high on him before the season, and
yeah,
I'm not going to say, like, I still think there's so much there. So
yeah,
I don't know.
yeah.
That's
No,
me.
I mean that's the hope. You look at like in terms of his raw abilities, and just
Yeah.
like you can't teach size, you can't teach strength, you can't
Yeah.
teach reach, that kind of stuff. So
He can skate.
Um, yeah, yeah, no, I don't disagree. I don't disagree. Rempe talked about his two thumb surgeries,
Ugh.
how he needs to be more honest about how an injury is feeling in the future so that this doesn't happen again. He was quite forthcoming about that. That was clearly what the situation was. He came back from that first surgery. He couldn't even close his hand on his stick. He couldn't even hold his stick, and he insisted he was okay and good to play, and he just couldn't play his game. And he said that was the toughest part for him, was that stretch when he came off of the first injury. He
Hmm.
just was like, that wasn't me. He just kept saying, that wasn't me out there, that wasn't my game. Because he was completely hampered. He couldn't fight, he was turning down fights, he couldn't play physically. So it just really wasn't him. And then, I mean, yeah, his thumb looks like it's been through the ringer. That's all I'll say. So he had to have a
Yeah.
second surgery, and that kind of shut him down for the rest of the season. So, but he's a
Do
guy I'm
they
curious to see what.
do they have a better prognosis now after the second? They cleaned it up.
He said that, yeah, now that it's like it should be 100% good to go, and he said he can hold his stick fully now.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, yeah, that's important. That I would say is important. So, uh, hopefully he'll be 100% healed, but he's just a guy I'm curious to see what happens with next season. I mean, where do you see him going now that a lot of his former Hartford teammates have kind of caught up to him, and will be in the mix next training camp, battling with him for a spot?
Yeah, a lot the same as Edstrom. You can't really judge based on that. I love his heart. I always have. Certainly
Yeah,
wasn't as effective, and it's not because he forgot. You can't play on one leg if you're 6'8". You can't play with one hand when, it's not like he's this crafty stick handling a phone booth guy. He needs that hand for everything. So hard to judge him. Sort of love his commitment to try to play through that, because the other thing is it hurts. Like physically, it hurts. Every
of
stride you take with a
course.
fractured ankle, every time you catch a pass on your backhand or shoot a puck, it hurts when you have an injury. And you just have to get over that. And then, oh, play in the best league in the world and under intense scrutiny amongst your fan base and coaching staff. Because if you say you're good, they don't say, okay, you're good, but you're playing through this. No, you have to be
Right.
you no matter what. And that's the hardest part.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
it's a learning thing. And I'm still high on him as well.
Yeah,
I know people can get, um, I don't know, bored, or, the excitement sort of, the shine wears off
subsides.
some of these
Hmm.
guys, especially in a place like New York. You love the free agent, you love the prospect, the shiny new toy, especially when you're not winning like they think you should. But there's something there, trust me. And I
Yeah.
think he can be. a positive impact player next year.
Yeah, I'm very curious to see where they go with that. If they, have are more lean toward wanting to give him another shot and seeing, if he can recapture the sort of magic that he had
Yeah.
earlier on in his career and what he was able to do for the Rangers in terms of energy and momentum. And I know Mike Sullivan always talks about having a momentum swinging line. That's his idea for the fourth line, I think. So Matt Rempe really does fit that bill. Um, but yeah, he obviously is going to have a little bit more of a crowded competition to go through in order to lock down this spot. Because I know Yaro Himelash he's
Looks good.
coming.
Yeah, looks
Yeah,
good.
he's coming, man. Was talking about he was talking about his vision board for the summer, and
Nice. Okay. It's good to have goals.
yeah, no, he's a real special kid. They all are really. All right, other highlights from breakup day that are worth noting. Mika
I'm just
Zibanejad.
old. I must be old. I'm just
Yeah, I think you are.
all right.
I was about to say, how could you not find the vision board to be so endearing? When he said vision board, I actually had to like step away for a second. I was like, I can't believe this 20-something-year-old man who's like, 6 foot whatever,
Yeah.
talking about his vision board for the summer and his goals. I was like,
It's good to have goals.
seriously, no, what a blessing. What an absolute blessing. Um,
Okay.
Mika Zibanejad wants to be here. Definitely
There you go. Of
put it
course
in
he does.
writing. Well, that's the thing that's interesting. Like, even though, earlier on in the season, obviously a lot was made of Adam Fox's non-committal comments. But if you read between the lines of Mika Zibanejad's comments as well, he did say, I'm committed to being here. But he also kind of left it a little open-ended, said things like, you're always reevaluating, that's in terms of what, they had just announced the retool. He said that's not what's being communicated. Like it's a retool, not a rebuild. Like, he was very much still wrapping his head around the whole situation while, saying the right things, but leaving himself kind of an open ended, for a decision there. So him coming out and saying, I want to be here, no questions asked, very definitively, was still a bit of a tone change for Mika Zibanejad from earlier in the season to now. So that's always a positive, especially because of the season that he had. What
Yeah.
he finished with 34 goals, I think it was.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, just and almost cleaned up in all the team awards, players player, team MVP, um, yeah, things like that. So all of those were very well deserved for me because of Zibanejad this season.
Definitely.
Johnny,
Definitely.
yeah, Johnny Brodzinski hasn't had any conversations yet with management. He said he would leave that to his agent, but just kind of reading the tea leaves, I don't think he'll be back. Um, which, he has been such a great soldier for the
Hmm.
Rangers all these years. I mean, some other team out there should be able to recognize the type of player and person that he is in a
Yep.
locker room and how beneficial that is to any organization just to have a good soldier like that who so humble and will do any sort of role that, you ask of him. So we'll see what ends up happening there. Some world championships updates. Dylan Garand hasn't heard from Canada, but Adam Sikora and Urho Vakanainen will be going for their respective teams. Gabe Perreault had conversations about it, but ultimately decided not to go. As for why, he said, I think this is a big summer for me, and I want to spend more time in the gym and be able to put some more strength on. Brian, what do you think are the benefits to participating in a tournament like that or curating your own summer program like it seems Gabe is going to do?
Well, I mean, every summer you go in the gym. I was in the gym, you know, you go in the gym right away. And he's younger. He hasn't had, what do you have, 2 years in college? He had a couple of years putting on some weight. You know, I think that's college is where you get really strong, especially those first 2 years in
Mm-hmm.
college. So, yeah, I'd like to see him go and play for USA. I think you can get in the gym now and then go over there. There's gyms there. You can continue on, you know.
You could do both.
Yeah, it's spread out. It's not a huge heavy lift. It's a few more games, but he's had plenty of international stuff. He's worn the jersey. Yeah, if that's what's best for him. I liked his second half. I liked him in that
Hmm.
role after the trade. Um, man, it's going to be a big year for him. So I don't mind him. I don't know where he trains or what he does. I have no doubt he's going to try to improve on everything, speed, quickness, all that. You got to build your engine in the summer, but yeah, maybe 1 or 2 more years of building that up because then the rest is you want to get in shape and get better, but it's injury
Hmm.
prevention. That's what the gym does for the
Yep.
most part. So yeah, maybe it's just selfishly I'd like to see him out there for USA, get to
Yeah.
watch him play more, but he knows what's best for him. He's
Yeah.
obviously got some guidance with his old man too, so
Hmm.
it's hard to question it. I just wanted to see him.
Selfishly.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so if we go down our pending unrestricted free agents and restricted free agents, the Rangers have a few of each. For UFAs, they have Brodzinski, Sherry, Trafix, Walensky. He led Hartford in points. Casey Fitzgerald, Connor Mackey, Brandon Scanlon, all those guys are down in Hartford. RFAs, Schneider, Iorio, Garand, Berard, Brisson, Scott Morrow, and then a couple of their goalies, Hugo Olas and Talon Boyko. Do you think Dylan Garand is ready for the number 2 job?
Oh, there's no way. There's no way to know right now. He was certainly a bright spot in the opportunity that he finally got. Um, they've had him for a number of years, so ideally, like you draft him, you keep him, you develop him. That is sort of the progression that you want to have in terms of cost certainty. You've seen him the whole way through. You've seen his progressions. You know what he needs to continue to develop. That is when teams do that well, they have long runs of, competitive teams. So, yeah, I think ideally in a perfect world, he comes in next year, has a great training camp, and he's your number 2 guy. I think you need 3 or 4 goalies now that can step in at some point and play solid hockey for you, whether it's a small sample size because you've had injuries or next year's 84 games.
Hmm.
I know it's just 2 games and people are like, it's 2 games. Well, maybe it's 2 games for your third guy on the depth chart or your fourth guy on the depth chart. If there's an injury, God forbid, if something happens to,
Well, and Igor is hurt at least once almost every season.
because he plays a ton, right? So
Yeah.
you need 3, probably 4 guys that you can just be like solid, make the stops you're supposed to. For him, clearly he wants it.
Yeah.
And they weren't thrilled with him to the point. I don't know if they weren't thrilled with him. I just think what was best for him and the club was leave him down, focus on this team. This is your team. Don't keep looking up at the big club. Play good hockey, earn your spot that
Can
way
you
because
blame
they
him
couldn't.
though, 4 years in?
Uh, yeah, that's a hard one for me to answer. No, I can't, I guess, because
Yeah.
I was lighting it up in the American League my first year and being like, what are they doing? Why wouldn't they
Yeah.
call me
Why
up?
aren't you looking at me?
And then, yeah, so and you almost feel like you have to be perfect, but maybe in the long run, that's what goalies they have to have sort of that mindset. You got to be perfect all the time. I don't know. Hopefully it's a good story. He's not huge. Goalies now are huge,
Hmm.
but he did look good. So
Yeah.
that would be ideal, I think, if he can strangle that number 2 job and hold on to it.
Yeah, for sure. I think also just from a cap standpoint, obviously he's
Exactly.
an RFA, so he needs a new deal. But because he's only had 3 games in the NHL, it's not going to come with a hefty price tag. Certainly not what Jonathan Quick had gotten up to here in New York. So,
All right.
but I mean, we were talking about this a little bit before we started recording, just about when he was passed over in November. For me, I think at the time, I had heard the same thing. The team, Hartford had a horrible season. I mean, I would
Mhm.
be surprised if any of that coaching staff is back. I mean, he was already interviewing for a college job in Minnesota. So, I mean, I think it's already pretty written on the wall that he's not going to be back next season. But I think that when Hartford as a whole was struggling as much as they were, sure, you could, look at Garand and his numbers and his part in that. But I think that in November, granted, the season hadn't completely gone off the rails yet. The letter came out in January, but it wasn't. From what I remember, I didn't feel at all this season that the Rangers were really still in it. It kind of felt like pretty one note for most of the season, even going down a lot. But I think as we got further away from them passing over Garand for Martin, for me personally, it started to feel a little bit sillier. Like I just didn't really understand it as much, just because it wasn't just Garand who wasn't playing well down in Hartford, and at
Mhm.
that time, when he signed his contract, him and his camp were under the impression that he was positioned as the third string goalie. So that was a conversation. So then
Mhm.
they went back on that conversation and recalled Martin instead of Grant. So obviously that's not going to sit well for the kid. It's not going to sit well with the camp. Um, but from the Rangers' perspective in general, I just wonder why. I mean, Martin ended up getting 6 appearances.
Mhm.
They're going off of 3 games for this kid's new contract when they could have had upwards of 6.
Mhm.
You could have been up to 8 if you counted the 2 games that Louis Domingue got like 1 game over, two each of the 2 seasons that he played for the Rangers. So, could Garand have had more of a you know workload for them to be
Yeah.
making this big decision going into next season is kind of how I look at it. Plus, he comes in, he did really well those first 2 games, and he did really well in those 3 games. I think it was like he saved 91 of 95 shots, 90 something like that.
Yeah.
Um, and he's got so much confidence, like you said. He's such a confident guy. I talked to him 101 just about learning from Igor and Quick, and he was as complimentary as you can be towards those guys, but he was also inserting himself into the
Mhm.
conversation because
Have to.
yeah, and you could tell he truly believes it. And I just don't I think that a part of, the Rangers development issues is not fostering confidence like that. I think that they can sometimes make certain decisions that obliterate confidence. And with a guy like that who already has an abundance of confidence, I just wonder, what the harm would have been for Chris Drury during his end of season availability to say, I can totally see him stepping into that that number 2 job. It's not giving it to him. I don't think anything should just
Mhm.
be handed out. But if you liked what you saw, if you do think that he's capable, there's no harm in saying it is absolutely possible. Like he did well enough, and he did shower him in praise. But all he said in terms of the number 2 job was, "We'll certainly be looking at him among others." So that just kind of makes maybe Garand and his camp think, well, is this just going to be the same situation again where they're bringing in another guy to, be above me on the depth chart? And in that case, it's, that's when the confidence starts to dwindle, I think. So I don't
Well,
know.
it's
That's
up to
that's
you,
just how I
bud.
saw it.
Confidence can be fleeting. You got to prepare, expect things. Look, but the kid, it's different. I understand it's different now than when I came into the league. You see a kid in Philly, Porter Martone, like his second game is yelling at the refs about a call that they missed on him. He's
Cool.
screaming, and the ref screams back at him, and then everyone's up in arms about the ref disrespected Porter Martone. I have a different take on that.
Yeah.
I think the ref gave him an absolute get out of jail free card. He could have teed him up, and the ref skated over to Rick Tocchet, had a conversation. The point
Mm-hmm.
I'm making is this kid stepped onto NHL ice the same with the same mentality and the same confidence as he did at Michigan State, as he did in the
Mm-hmm.
OHL. I'm going to play hockey. This is how I play hockey. This is my mentality. And I remember watching that game. They were playing Detroit. It was his second game that he played. This was a few weeks ago. And I'm like, I want to smash this kid's face in. Who does he think he is? And like now I'm watching him and I'm like, give me more of Porter Martone because he runs guys over. He's playing
Yeah.
physical. He gets the puck on
Hmm.
a stick. He's scoring goals in the playoffs. He's over a point a game right now. And I'm like, if you're Danny Briere, if you're Rick Tocchet, you're not going to tell this kid to tone it down. Look what
He's
he's doing
forcing
for
your
you.
hand. Yeah, he's
Yeah. And,
forcing
and
your
so
hand.
like I get there's a, humility aspect of it and you know your place because you're a young guy. Like Chris Kreider walked into our locker room and he was first guy on the table in the middle of a playoff run, fresh out of BC. And like again, this is a different time. And like four guys are coming to me like, get your boy off the table. I'm like, number one, we've never played together. I know him as much as you guys do. I've seen him like twice in the
Yeah.
summertime. So I had to go up and I'm like, hey man, listen, just wait till like the older guys go. And he didn't know, but he didn't care. He's like, I got to do what's
Aw.
right for me to play well. And he, guess what?
Yeah.
He scored five huge goals for us in the playoffs. We went to the conference final.
Yeah.
So Garand, especially in that position, you got
Yeah.
to have swagger.
Yeah.
And
And he
hopefully
does.
he
Let me tell
holds
you.
on to that. Yeah, it's good. That's a good thing. And in
Yeah.
terms of what happens, hey, guess what? Arbitration's after July 1. Free agency happens. If they go out and they sign somebody, you don't have to
Yeah.
sign any contract. You know what I mean? You can do whatever you want unless they come to you and say, you're our guy. You
Yeah.
got to earn it, but
Yeah.
we have you
Yeah.
there.
That's basically what I wrote in my column is I just don't think that there would be any harm in saying to him,
So
especially,
my
yeah,
argument to that
yeah,
is if Chris Drury comes out and says he's our number two guy, this is it. Is that loading him with some sort of pressure
more
that is
pressure.
unnecessary. He could have a private conversation with
Yeah.
him, being like, "We need you to be our number two guy." I'm not going to go out and say
Yeah.
anything.
I think that that's probably the better, I'm talking semantics when I am
Right.
like analyzing the way that he answered that question. Like, if you read between the lines, obviously he heaped so much praise on him, and how good they felt about, him watching him. But I just think that for a player like that, it could have gone a long way
Yeah.
just to give him a vote of confidence without handing him the job. It's not handing him the
Hmm.
job to say, I can see him being our number two because of the way that he was for you this season. He was a good soldier when you passed over him. He's been marinating in Hartford for 4 years now. He came up, he gave you three really strong games. What do you go, 2-0-1?
Hmm.
So I
Totally.
just think that, yeah, I just think that that's like a small correction that they can make that could go a long way with some of their prospects for the ones that they are unabashedly confident about. Like
Hmm.
I don't think that there's any harm in that. And I think a guy like Garand is a perfect place to start in that
Yeah.
sort of situation.
It's an
So
important position.
yeah, yeah, it's huge, and I mean, it's the
It's 30
legacy in
games,
New
right?
York.
60
Yeah,
points
and
up for grabs.
the legacy in New York. You
Yeah.
want to talk about pressure. Just being in this organization is pressure. I think
Hmm.
enough. Like the lineage of guys that you're following is daunting when you really
Right.
sit and think about it. But he exudes confidence.
Hmm.
I just would like to see them foster that a little bit more, especially after the way that earlier in the season went. I wrote about it that I just like I think that the best way for them to approach this with him was, Chris already said what he said publicly, but when they go into these inevitable negotiations on this next contract, for them to say it is yours to lose.
Hmm.
Like you're going to have every opportunity to take this job. Because like
Yeah.
I mean, I haven't really looked at it, but I mean, I don't know. I wonder what veteran they're gonna bring in, of who could even fill that number two role if it's not him. So yeah, I'm curious to see how it goes. But I don't think that there should be any question about who the number two goalie is going into next season. That's just a personal thought. All right.
I'm with you there. Let's keep it. I
Yeah,
like that.
there's no reason not to, I don't think. But I guess we'll see. I'm sure we'll talk more about it in the coming weeks. I don't know exactly what our recording schedule is going to be, but I'm sure as we get closer to the
Well,
draft lottery. Hmm.
yeah, if the lottery falls bounce in favor, we might
Yeah,
have to hop in.
yeah, that's going to be on May 5th. So they have pretty high chances um, of getting the top three, four picks. So
Yeah, are
we'll
they
see how
third
that
or
shakes
they're
out.
third,
I
aren't
think
they?
they have the third, yeah, third best odds
Yeah.
for, I think they have the third best odds for first overall.
Right.
I think, yeah,
Yeah.
Gavin McKenna, that could be fun.
Gavin McKenna. This is a Swedish player.
Penn Stater,
there's a kid that everybody loves it. And, uh, oh my God, I was just talking about him yesterday. This is good podcasting. Um, a fenceman out of North Dakota. Yeah,
mm,
there's some, but McKenna's, I think, the
the
prize.
consensus.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. I'm looking at
for
UFA
sure.
goalies that are older.
Yeah, no, yeah. See, like now,
That's
like
what I'm
I
doing
haven't
right
looked.
now.
Yeah, I haven't really looked at it of like who the options even are. Nobody comes to the top of my head.
Oh, I'm sure
You know, like what?
Like a Montembeau would be. I
Oh
think he's probably
yeah,
under
that could be fun.
contract, but that's a three-headed monster. Maybe they move on from him.
Yeah,
Um, I'd rather stay in house.
yeah.
Talbot, he's up again.
One more time.
Bob. I don't think you
Oh,
go
Igor would love
Vanacek or
that.
Harrison or yeah,
Igor would love to bring in Bob. That would be fun.
yeah. So
Um, yeah, how about that embrace with the Bob and Jonathan Quick at the end of his game too? That was really nice to see. He
game
was talking
recognized
about all
game.
the yeah, he was talking about he was like, we've had some battles
Mm,
over the
yeah,
years.
it's a
Love
long
it.
time.
All right. Let's stop it there. Thanks for watching as always. Give us a thumbs up, like, subscribe, comment down below. What are your thoughts and feelings going to the Rangers off the season? Which UFAs and RFAs would you like to see on the Rangers roster going into next season? Let us know, and we'll chat again soon.